My name is Lauren Tucker, and I will be doing my persuasive speech on CRISPR-Cas9. I want you to imagine a world where we can choose what our kids look like, how tall they are, or even their athleticism. And this might sound okay, but in my speech I will explain why this is not the case. My credibility is that I have taken a lot of science classes over the course of my high school career. I've learned about CRISPR-Cas9 in those courses. I'm a science major, and because my topic is CRISPR-Cas9, I've also done a lot of research. Now, this affects us all because it's happening now, and if a stop is not put to it, it will also affect our future generations and cause a rift in our honor system. So first, I will explain the overlying ethics that everyone should follow. Then I will describe the specific rules that directly relate to CRISPR-Cas9, and finally I will illustrate how CRISPR-Cas9 violates these ethical rules. But in order to jump into the speech, we have to understand what CRISPR-Cas9 actually is and what ethical code it disrupts. In the article, Is CRISPR-Cas9 Gene Editing Ethical?, author D.A. Holmes from the Odyssey writes, quote, "Simply put, CRISPR-Cas9 is a feat of biomedical engineering that can edit our human genome by removing, adding, or altering sections of the DNA sequence. More specifically, it is known as the clustered, regularly interspaced, short palindromic repeats type 2 system that is used in bacterial immune systems and has been modified for genome engineering." End quote. So that entire complicated mess, it basically just means that a modified piece of bacteria has the ability to cut out certain parts of our DNA from our genome and replace it or leave it cut out. And the ethical code is that we need to look out for others, including our future generations. Simply that. Now, the entire medical community is based off of one oath or code that follows this, and that's the Hippocratic Oath. As defined, quote, "The oath dictates the obligations of the physicians to students of medicine and the duties of pupil to teacher. In the oath, the physician pledges to prescribe only beneficial treatments according to his abilities and judgment, to refrain from causing harm or hurt, and to live an exemplary personal and professional life." End quote. And that's from the editors of the Encyclopedia Britannica. Now, CRISPR-Cas9 breaks this oath, and it harms future generations because we don't know it. And so we must ask ourselves, if doctors, who are the pinnacle of the medical community, followed this oath, why shouldn't we? Another example of the breaking of this oath is during the Holocaust with Dr. Joseph Mengele. Obviously, the Hippocratic Oath was not put into place and not being used, obviously, but it and CRISPR-Cas9 will not lead to this drastic of measures, but the Holocaust is an example of what happens when that ethical code that we spoke about is broken. Now, more specifically to the aforementioned ethical code, we need to not meddle in things we do not know before doing more research on the subject. So CRISPR-Cas9 has the ability to essentially recode our DNA. As A. Kaplan, one of the authors of the journal No Time to Waste, The Ethical Challenges Created by CRISPR, writes, "CRISPR has sparked, quote, the ethical debate about modifying the human germline. Notwithstanding the talk about, quote-unquote, designer babies, CRISPR-Cas9 offers new possibilities to render humans immune to a range of diseases or to repair fatal gene defects in a human embryo." End quote. Now, this might all sound good, but scientists don't fully understand this technology, and because of that, it's extremely dangerous. From the Bioethics Observatory, quote, "Be that as it may, the technique is not yet well enough developed to be able to use it in a completely safe and efficient manner." End quote. So it's not safe. But because we don't know it, there's also a chance that it can do some good, like it can ward off diseases, but it might cause all other problems that we don't know about. C. Broskowski writes in the journal, quote, "Do CRISPR germline or ethics statements cut it?" That obstacles might include inaccurate editing, often on-target effects, incomplete editing, mosaicism, efficiency challenges, success rate, and interference from unexpected and or poorly understood factors, including epigenetic, immune, and environmental events, pleiotropy, and penturance, resulting in unintended and consequences, end quote. Basically, that entire big quote is just saying we don't know what CRISPR-Cas9 can do, which means that a lot of other bad things can happen and cause harm to our future generations and possibly ourselves. Now, CRISPR-Cas9 violates the ethical code of not looking out for others and future generations. As I stated before, just want to put that down again. CRISPR-Cas9 can change our genetic makeup, and if it's taken too far, there's potential to change our kids, like I said in the introduction. Now, this obviously causes some ethical issues, as it is too far to go with science, and a lot of people agree with that. The technology CRISPR-Cas9 uses is unique and unknown, and scientists are rushing into it. As the Bioethics Observatory says again, the main challenge is to increase the efficiency of the genome editing while ensuring that unwanted changes are not introduced in other parts of the genome, end quote. Now, that is all good and well, but we need to take our time when using this technology. CRISPR-Cas9 might help with diseases such as Down syndrome or Huntington's, but there's also a question of availability for everyone. Of course, there are also those who are determining the boundaries that should be placed on CRISPR-Cas9. However, Dr. Mesotrovic of Medical News writes, quote, researchers in the United States are already addressing the necessity for regulation of human genome editing. At the end of 2015, the National Institute of Health still refuses to fund research proposals for CRISPR-Cas9 germline editing therapies. Nevertheless, it has been to be emphasized that this policy does not automatically cover projects that are funded privately, end quote. So, while there are boundaries being placed on CRISPR-Cas9, it doesn't change the fact that if you are rich enough, you can still pay to use CRISPR-Cas9. And that means that equal opportunity isn't given to all and breaks the moral code yet again. After exploring just how the uses of CRISPR-Cas9 overrides the ethics of society, I will now wrap up my speech. In conclusion, we went over the definitions of CRISPR-Cas9 and the ethical code I was speaking on, the specific parts of CRISPR-Cas9 that breaks the moral code, and finally, how exactly the uses of CRISPR-Cas9 breaks ethical honor. Because of all these points brought up, I believe that more severe limits need to be placed on the usage of CRISPR-Cas9, or it should even be banned. Fortunately, there's not much that we as students can do besides the basic protesting. We can, however, refuse to use it or help our scientists understand the limits that should be placed on this scientific technology. And there is no doubt that CRISPR-Cas9 can be used to make many amazing discoveries and help those who are hurting. The problem lies, however, with how far people are willing to go with this newfound knowledge and how available it will actually be. Now, this is why I believe that the usage should be very limited or banned altogether. Thank you.